Dr. Amish Adalja is a senior scholar at Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. Joins me now from Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. Good to have you with us on the programme, sir. I mean, how does this form of therapy work on the body in reality?
So what we know is that when people recover from the coronavirus, they develop antibodies. And what convalescent plasma does is takes their blood, the portion of their blood that contains those antibodies, and transfuse that into someone who has coronavirus. And those antibodies help to neutralize the virus, help them recover quicker. And this is something that has a lot of biological plausibility, but we do not yet know whether this works because we don't have randomized controlled data to show that it is definitively beneficial.
From the experience, knowledge and contacts you have, how quickly, in theory, would doctors see results in this sort of therapy?
Well, it's hard to say because we give this to a lot of patients. So many patients have gotten it because we have it available through what's called expanded use. And you do see these patients get better, but we don't know if they would have gotten better anyway. And you do see it primarily being beneficial in milder patients, and milder patients may be already predisposed to get better. So this is the whole conundrum that we're in. We don't know whether or not it works and in what patient subgroups it works. But you do see people get better over time with this disease, but it's hard to isolate whether it's convalescent plasma or the natural course of illness or steroids or remdesivir, because a lot of different treatments are going on at the same time.
Indeed. I mean, the evidence, according to the FDA so far, as we've said, has not been conclusive about whether it works, and issues of when to administer it and in what dose still has to be worked out. That said, there are many treatments that are being looked at right now. What's your understanding of which ones are actually working?
So we have data that, for example, dexamethasone, which is a corticosteroid, helps with people who need oxygen. We have some data on remdesivir that, though not a knockout punch, it does get people better a little bit faster and out of the hospital quicker. There are other treatments like monoclonal antibodies, which are synthetic antibodies that are in phase 3 clinical trials, and there's a lot of hope around them. And there's also other medications that work on the immune system, that modulate how the immune system reacts to the virus, that also are something that's coming down the pipeline. But right now, the only tried and true thing we have is dexamethasone and remdesivir.
In terms of the emergency authorization offered by the president to sort of move things along for the medical community, one wonders about the sort of the balances, the checks and balances that have to be in place when trials are undertaken. What are sort of, you might say, the pros and cons of this? Does the president's moves help the medical community?
No, I believe the president's move will hurt the medical community. We were able to get convalescent plasma. I've given it to every patient that I needed to give it to. I've had no problems giving it to them under expanded use with the FDA. What the president's move does is makes it very unlikely that we'll get a randomized controlled trial result. So we may end up in the end not knowing whether or not this worked or not. And that's not how we want to do medicine. We don't want politics to be injected into the FDA's decisions. Every time the president has intervened in this pandemic, it has actually hurt the response to the pandemic. So we saw this with hydroxychloroquine, and we don't want a repeat of this. This is actually something that there is a promising signal here, and we want to know exactly when to give it and who to give it. And the only way we're going to know that is through rigorous randomized controlled trials. And this is going to discourage people from enrolling in the trials because the president has now put his finger on the scale, so to speak.
Dr. Amish Adalja from the Johns Hopkins Center, thanks very much for joining us from Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania.
Thank you.